Hey guys, how are you? It's Ted Recitas again. Doing second part to skill training, the art of program execution. Now part one, sorry it took so long to put this one out, but part one we did skill define, facets of a skill, and skill from a strength perspective. Today what we're going to cover is skill in educational programming, and hopefully we'll have time to do timing of progressions. If not, no big deal. So in terms of an educational programming, I just had a conversation with an associate of mine over in the Philippines regarding Eastern Bloc countries and German volume training, and in regards to periodization. Now, periodization is nothing more than a syllabus for that's written by the coach for the athlete. Okay? That's essentially what it is. Now, there are a couple main types. There are two main types of periodization in regards to traditionally weightlifting. It's linear and non-linear. Linear is very basic. We're going to go over that, which is why you don't see any subcategories. Versus non-linear, there are many different modalities in terms of a non-linear format. Some of them include summated, undulating, conjugated, and pendulum. UConn uses a sliding scale, and there's a plethora of other ones that you can research online. Texas method, 531s, etc. Nice straight line over there. As you can see, it's a linear program. Now, look, don't get really focused in terms of the numbers that are on here. This is essentially just to show you that in terms of linear programming, it's pretty much consistent. Here for this example, the volumes are held constant and the intensities are the one that's varying, which each mesocycle, which could be a given week and or a given month, depending upon the level of fitness of your client and or athlete. And as you can see here, now a question that usually arises every time I bring or present a programming type of presentation is, who is this program best for? Well, this program is best for those deconditioned individuals or people that have never worked out before. Now, why do I say that? Now, again, if we take a look at the graph, it's a very straight line. It's very predictable. The settings here is 5 to 10 pounds with each mesocycle and or each microcycle. So what ends up happening, the progression is nice, slow, even keeled, nice incline. So in terms of skill and skill building, this is a great way in terms of not only a skill acquisition, but and skill retention, but as well as skill mastery to a certain level. Because remember, strength is just merely a skill. So it's like, if I could push 65 pounds, with a given time, as long as that context, so that stimulus remains consistent, it's expected that I'm able to do it, as well as my capacity in terms of that skill of pushing a 65 pound object will increase with time. That's why this is very, very good program for those individuals that's looking to do a GPP phase or even a starter strength phase. This is it. This is a really, really good, solid periodization format to do. But you're going to have to change it. After roughly about 6 weeks. Summated. Now, this looks like kind of like for each mesocycle like a step ladder, then drop, step ladder, then drop, step ladder, and drop. Now, why do we do that? It's just because we're loading the system, the human system, with each microcycle within one mesocycle very progressively. In fact, it looks very linear when you look at a mesocycle at a time. Okay? Then once we load this individual, right, we want to give the CNS some time to recuperate. Hence why there is a deloading phase, and that deloading phase is that 50% that you see there. Now, if you notice, with each given mesocycle that is there, each mesocycle is increased, from the previous mesocycle. Now, for this example, it's increased roughly about 5 for each given blue line that you see. But it doesn't have to be that way. Now, I only did that for the purposes of this presentation. But I've seen and I've done some changes where there's 20 to 30 pounds increase between the first microcycle of a mesocycle 1 and or a mesocycle 2. So it's absolutely plausible that you could do that. So just FYI, generally speaking, if you're doing a high intensity summated program, what you could do is deload with a higher volume type of programming, and vice versa. Higher volume mesocycles in a summated program, you can deload off of that week with a high intensity program. Very, very common. Undulating programming. Right? This is very interesting because you know what? The variables can change daily, weekly, or within mesos. So it's like a lot of trainers claim to quote unquote change it up. Well, you know what we do, what real trainers do and real coaches do is that we use an undulating format. This not only keeps the athlete interested and or client interested, this is a really good solid way in terms of periodization to keep the client on its toes, and you see some considerable strength gains as well. Same thing with your summated. So here, what ends up happening is that if you notice, I'm undulating my intensities, which are labeled in blue, and at the same token, my volumes are also undulating in respect to the percentage of my one-on-one. Okay? Pendulum type of method. This is something that I really don't use very often. But what you could do is start high, come mid microcycle, that hits its low, and then all the way up. Okay, very important to if you notice that the intensities again, for every given intensity that I label, there's also a given repetition. There's always arguments in regards to well, I'm doing this type of programming. The recent posting up on one of the forums that I'm on is German volume training. It's essentially 10 by 10s. So if you're doing a 10 by 10, that generally means that you'll be lifting, traditionally speaking. If you're running a purist kind of way, 75% of your 1RM. Well, if you're running 75% of your 1RM, and that's a 10 by 10, that is incredible amount of tonnage. And is it possible that your 1RM will increase? Yes, which is exactly why with any given program, regardless whether it is a 531, summated, undulated, conjugated, doesn't make a difference. You should always keep in mind how many repetitions you pushed out over the given intensities, because what you may need to do is recalibrate your 1RM and then reset the whole thing. You do this because you want to ensure that there is appropriate stimuli to the system. And that stimuli will change due to the adaptation factor. Remember the gas principle. When you reduce your stress, there's supercompensation, hopefully positive adaptation occurs. Conjugated method. This is basically on a simultaneous system, an effort system. What is also called in the effort system is basically max effort, dynamic effort, repeated effort. Max effort is essentially your max days in terms of maximal strength. Rep range is roughly about 1 to 5, 1 to 6, which is given 100% to 85% of your 1RM. Dynamic effort is quote unquote your power days. This is high speed movement. So that means that you'll be moving at somewhere in the neighborhood of 80% and above. High velocity movement is occurring in dynamic effort days, versus repeated effort is anywhere from 85% to about 75%. Your repeated effort days is your volume training, functional strength, strength endurance, if you will. Dynamic effort is more like power. Max effort days is heavy loading, lifting slowly. This is one interpretation of a conjugated programming. Again, if you notice the intensities versus volume, they coincide with each other. And there's always a correlation between the two, and they're inversely related. All right, guys, that's it. Hopefully you'll check out part 3, and hopefully this is not more than 15 minutes. That way I can upload it on YouTube. All right, guys, check me out on thetrainerslounge.com. Thank you for your time.